The Galactic Council chamber on Cygnus Prime was never silent. A constant hum of translators, filtered atmospheric systems, and the subtle movements of a dozen different species filled the space with a background murmur of civilization. Today, however, the murmur was agitated, laced with a fear that transcended biological imperatives. Ambassador Thrax of the insectoid Cathari stood at his designated platform, his antennae twitching in a pattern that signified extreme distress. He addressed the council, his translated voice a series of clicks that conveyed deep unease. The loss of the science vessel Observer's Grace is the 7th incident this cycle. Each one occurs near the spatial boundary we have designated as the Red Line. We have lost probes, automated stations, and now a vessel with a crew of 300 souls. Our long-range sensors detected a fleeting energy signature. Then, nothing. We must know. What power lurks beyond that line? What species is so advanced, so aggressive, that it devours our ships without a single communication? A ripple of agreement, or at least shared anxiety, passed through the chamber. The floating, gaseous orations shifted their luminescent bodies in a display of unease. The stoic, rock-skinned Drakari ground their stone fists together, a sound like grinding boulders. Even the technologically superior Xylos, with their 4 eyes and calm demeanor, seemed unsettled. For 50 galactic cycles, a strict quarantine had been in place. The region of space beyond the Red Line was a mystery, a silent void from which no probe had ever returned. It was presumed to be the territory of an impossibly advanced and impossibly hostile hyperpower. The prevailing theory was that they were a race of pure energy, or perhaps masters of dark matter, who viewed all other life as an insignificant nuisance to be erased. Ambassador Ilara Vance of Earth had been a silent observer for many of these meetings. Humanity was a new addition to the Council, a species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel and was still considered a minor, unproven entity. She was smaller than most of the delegates, softer, with no carapace, no natural armor, and no visible weapons. She was often overlooked. Today, however, she stood. A hush fell over the chamber as all eyes turned to the small, pink-skinned being. "Forgive my interruption, honored delegates," Ilara began, her voice calm and clear in the translated feed of every species present. But I believe I can shed some light on the mystery of the Red Line." A skeptical chitter came from the Cathari delegate. Your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. What could you possibly know of a power that has confounded the galaxy for generations?" Ilara offered a small human smile. "Because, Ambassador Thrax, the region you call the quarantine zone, we call it the backyard. The energy signatures you detected, that wasn't a weapon. It was the activation of a jump drive on a long-haul cargo vessel. The disappearance of your probe 7 cycles ago, it wasn't destroyed, it was towed. It's currently sitting in a museum of xenoarchaeology on a planet called Mars, being studied by our university students." The silence in the chamber was absolute. It was a silence so profound you could hear the hum of the environmental systems. The Xylos ambassador Zor leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. "You are claiming this deadly hyperpower is you? That you are responsible? Not just me, humanity," Ilara corrected gently. "You see, we didn't detect your probes because we weren't looking for them. The Red Line isn't a military border. It's the outer marker for our primary shipping lanes. Our space is busy. We have colonies, mining operations, research stations, and a lot of traffic. When your probe drifted into one of our busier trade routes, a freighter, the Irene, mistook it for a rogue navigation buoy and pulled it into its cargo bay to drop off at the nearest salvage yard. And the Observer's Grace?" Thrax's antennae were now rigid with horror. Ilara's expression softened. "That was unfortunate. They jumped their ship into the middle of a contested salvage operation over a particularly dense asteroid field. Two of our corporate mining collectives have been in a legal dispute over those mineral rights for 5 years. When a third, unidentified ship suddenly appeared and began scanning the claim, both sides thought the other had called in an armed enforcer. Their defensive systems automatically targeted the new arrival. They were destroyed in a corporate dispute? Zor's voice was flat with disbelief. No, not destroyed. Disabled. Standard corporate protocol is to disable, not destroy. There's less paperwork. The crew of the Observer's Grace is fine, a bit shaken up. They're being held at a secure facility on a nearby asteroid habitat, pending the outcome of the lawsuit. They've been given comfortable quarters and access to our entertainment networks. I believe they've developed a fondness for a show called Ancient Earth Vet. It's quite popular. The council erupted, not with fear, but with a cacophony of bewildered, disbelieving chatter. A species so advanced they didn't even notice the advanced technology of other races. A species whose primary interstellar conflicts were legal disputes over mining rights. Thrax's legs buckled, and he had to brace himself on his podium. "You're telling me," he stammered, "that the great, terrible, unknowable power that has haunted our nightmares is a species of accident-prone salvage operators and corporate litigators?" Alara shrugged, a gesture that was universally translated as one of mild apology. "We're also really into reality TV and competitive eating, but yes, that's the gist of it. Congratulations, you have officially made contact with humanity." The second part of this revelation, however, was yet to come. The council, still reeling, demanded a full investigation. A joint delegation, comprised of representatives from the 6 major council species, was to be escorted to Earth for formal diplomatic relations. Humanity, flustered and embarrassed by the whole misunderstanding, agreed. The delegation's arrival was, in itself, a study in cultural shock. They expected a heavily fortified, sterile, militaristic world. Instead, their shuttle descended through a sky filled with an impossible variety of flying vehicles, sleek government transports, garishly painted personal flitters, slow cargo haulers blasting music, and even what looked like a restored atmospheric aircraft from their pre-spaceflight era, buzzing along for a hobbyist's joyride. The spaceport was chaotic, a bustling, noisy, disorganized mess of activity that made the orderly Xylos ports look like morgues. They were met by a diplomatic escort, but also by a crowd. News crews from 1,000 different human interests jostled for position. Children pointed and stared. Vendors sold snacks and commemorative hollow pins with the delegation's images on them. The delegates were led through a throng of curious, smiling, and incredibly informal humans. The formal welcome was held in a vast auditorium. The delegates were given seats of honor on a stage, facing a massive, cheering audience. The human Secretary of Alien Affairs, a jovial man named David Chen, had welcomed them with a speech that was interrupted 3 times by people laughing and clapping. It was during the cultural exchange portion of the event that the true nature of humanity was laid bare. A Cathari scientist, still shaken by his experience, was invited to view a human sports arena. He was expecting a ritualized display of combat or martial prowess. Instead, he witnessed 22 humans chasing a ball across a grass field, their primary motivation seeming to be to get it into a rectangular goal. The intensity was staggering. They screamed, they collided, they fell, they got up again, all for the sake of a small, inflated sphere. When he asked why they did it, a human fan just grinned and said, "For the love of the game, buddy, and the nachos." The Drakari ambassador, a warrior by tradition, was taken to a military installation. He braced himself for rows of tanks, soldiers, and weaponry. He was shown a room filled with humans sitting in front of screens, some of them wearing headsets, intensely focused. He was told this was an esports tournament. The weapons were digital. The battles were fought with code and quick reflexes. The prize money, he was told, was more than the annual defense budget of some small colonies. He was utterly baffled. The final blow came during a formal dinner. The orations, who absorbed nutrients through their gaseous forms, floated over a dish of what they were told was a human delicacy: chili. The spices in the air around the dish caused their delicate membranes to spasm violently. They recoiled not in fear, but in a kind of shocked awe. The humans ate this stuff for pleasure. They enjoyed causing a mild chemical reaction in their own digestive tracts. Zor, the Xylo's ambassador, finally had his audience with a human scientist. He came with a list of questions, complex and profound. He wanted to discuss philosophy, the nature of consciousness, and humanity's place in the universe. The scientist, a brilliant woman named Dr. Eris Thorne, listened patiently. When he was finished, she leaned forward, a sparkle in her eye. "Those are fascinating questions, Ambassador, but you know what we're really excited about? Your people have 4 eyes, right? Each with a different spectral sensitivity. We've been trying to design an immersive entertainment system that can simulate that for decades. Can you imagine the video games, the movies, the art?" It was then that Zor understood. Humanity's deadliness wasn't in their weapons, which were, by galactic standards, relatively primitive. It wasn't in their territorial ambition, which was chaotic and self-driven rather than expansionist. It wasn't even in their resilience or adaptability. Their deadliest trait was their absolute, overwhelming, and relentless pursuit of interest. They were driven by an insatiable, almost biological need to be entertained, to be curious, to be engaged. Everything was a game. Everything was a puzzle. Everything was a potential story or a source of amusement. They turned interstellar travel into a commute. They turned first contact into a media event. They turned a potentially galaxy-ending mystery into an embarrassing misunderstanding about a probe in a shipping lane. They didn't conquer with fleets. They assimilated with culture. They didn't fight for resources. They competed for bragging rights. They didn't explore out of duty. They explored because they were bored. Back on Cygnus Prime, the Council convened one last time on the matter. The Red Line was officially dissolved. The quarantine zone was now a galactic tourist destination. And a new, more terrifying reality had set in. The Cathari delegate, his antennae now drooping in a posture of resigned awe, addressed the Council. "We have analyzed the data from the delegation. We have studied their history, their culture, their pastimes. I have reached a conclusion." He paused, letting the silence build. The other delegates leaned in. "We feared they were the deadliest species in the galaxy because we thought they possessed an unknown, unstoppable weapon," he continued. "We were wrong. They possess no single great weapon. They possess 1,000,000 small ones. Their weapon is a child's drawing taped to a warship's bulkhead. It is a song written about a first contact, played for laughs on 1,000 comedy shows. It is a corporation suing another corporation over the salvage rights to a ship they didn't even know existed. It is the simple, terrifying fact that they do not see the vast, awe-inspiring universe as a place of wonder to be revered, but as a theme park to be explored." He looked at the representatives of a dozen species, all of whom now understood. "Congratulations," he clicked, his voice heavy with a strange mixture of fear and profound respect. "Humanity has become the deadliest species alive, not because they can destroy us, but because we will never, ever be able to ignore them. We are no longer a civilization. We are now just another exhibit in their cosmic zoo, and they are the most fascinated and most fascinating visitors we could ever have imagined."